Hi everybody, it's Erin Scott here. How are you doing? There's a lot going on and I haven't really been recording much lately. It's really been a resonant time to sit in the stillness and to actually be participating in this global pause. But I do hope that you are each able to be in a place or are easily accessing a place of intrinsic understanding of the multiple functions of this moment, of this time, of this evolutionary process. So today, I'm recording this video on the 19th of April, and it's the evening time now, but the sun moved into Taurus this morning. So it's interesting that this is wanting to come forward now. I mean, the truth is there's a lot happening for us in the coming month. And so I want to show you a couple of things here, okay? We're going to talk about the astrology for this week. We have this new moon happening on Wednesday. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's just take a look here, okay? There's a lot happening, a ton happening. So let's kind of look at the generalities about what's going on. So today, sun moving into Taurus. By the way, for those of you interested, I have solar return analyses specifically on sale if you are born as a Taurus sun person. So essentially every month when that particular sign is activated throughout 2020, I'm having a large sale happening for each month of this year. Okay, so I'll show you the link at the end of this video. So sun moves into Taurus. Now look at what we have coming up on the 25th. On the 25th, in a few days, or at the end of this week essentially, Pluto goes retrograde. It's going to be going retrograde in Capricorn at 24 degrees, 59 minutes, essentially 25 degrees. So, we have a lot of energetics still activated in Capricorn. And Pluto retrograde is going to be creating more of a focus, more of a condensed process of transformation, a more condensed process of secrets, veiled realities coming to the forefront with regards to global politics, leaders, corporations, structures, globalized structures, okay? It's also impacting our own lives. It's like the structure of our own lives are going to be going through, have been, and are going to continue to go through great transformational process. With this Pluto retrograde process that's getting enacted, there perhaps could be more of an intensity with regards to the transformations at play in the areas that are distinctly activated according to your natal chart, your blueprint, your life. Okay, so it's very specific to you where it's activating. Yeah. What we have, interestingly, very correlated with this Pluto retrograde point is that the next day on the 26th, the sun will be conjunct Uranus at 6 degrees Taurus. Okay. So we'll talk about the new moon chart because I have it here. We're going to talk about this in a second. And I'll have you look at the chart and we'll talk about this as well. We have Mercury entering Taurus on the 27th. We have Beltane coming up at the beginning of May. Importantly, everybody, and I'm going to have another video emerging with regards to this because I think this is a really beautiful shift. It's obviously a natural evolutionary process. After this 18-month cycle of the nodal axis being in Cancer, Capricorn, May 5th, indeed, the nodes are going to shift into the Gemini Sagittarius axis. So for this next 18-month cycle, a completely new orientation, a completely new evolutionary driver, okay? So there'll be a specific video coming out with regards to that shortly, but this is huge. And this is, again, we kind of begin May. We have this Pluto process activated, then we move into the nodal axis shift with the North Node in Gemini. May 7th, full moon in Scorpio. May 11th, Mercury enters Gemini. Keep in mind, Venus is already in Gemini at this point, okay? So we have Venus in Gemini. We have the nodes, north nodes, specifically moving into Gemini. Now we have Mercury moving into Gemini. And then also on the 11th, we have Saturn retrograding in Aquarius at almost 2 degrees, okay? So Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde. Then we have Mars entering Pisces on the 13th. Also on the 13th, Venus goes retrograde in Gemini, where it will be for weeks. So again, retrograde, retrograde, retrograde. And then the next day, May 14th, we have Jupiter going retrograde at 27 degrees Capricorn. Okay? At the end of May, Sun entering Gemini. There'll be more to say about this. I'll definitely talk about the nodes, but there's a lot activated now, everybody. So let's take a look. Let's dip this down for now. Let's take a look at this week. And specifically, we're going to be looking at this new moon in Taurus, okay? So I've pulled a chart for, let me get my arrow back up. I've pulled a chart for Eastern US time. Okay, so the point when the new moon will occur, Sun Moon conjunct, will be happening on Wednesday the 22nd at 10:26 p.m. And it's happening New York, New York. And I actually just want to confirm something here. Yeah. So let's take a look at these things here. There's so much to talk about, and I'm actually going to make this very concise. I'm going to try and articulate a lot with as few words as possible, just to give you the main structural points of this process that's happening. Now, for those of you who are signed up for my newsletter and received communications that I had shared previously on my public Facebook page, etc., I discussed the CalSARPA process that we have been in since the end of February, and we are going to be in until the end of May. So we have another 5+ weeks, okay? The CalSARPA, which is a Jyotish term, it's a CalSARPA yoga, and what that talks about is all of the major planetary positionings happening or tied, linked between the nodal axis point. So up here on the chart, you can see Varuna is here, you can see Juno is here, you can see the part of fortune aligned with the ascendant, which is natural for a new moon point in the chart. But what we're talking about here is all the major planetary positions, right? They're all tied, bound, constrained between the nodal axis, yes? And what that talks about, to give you a brief summary, is that this is a time from end of February to end of May, that this is a karmic time. It's a very thick time of obligated experience. You know, it's a time when there might be, I tend to feel into this as a condensation of experience, a condensation of themes, topics, situations, circumstances, and events where it's necessary. This is kind of a necessary convergence, a necessary set of experiences that are coming about appropriately. Okay? Now, when we're looking at this Taurus new moon here at 3 degrees 24 minutes Taurus, happening on the 22nd, this is happening within the CalSARPA, meaning that over the course of the last couple months, the moon has been the only planet to push out every 2 weeks. So 2 weeks it will be within the CalSARPA, 2 weeks it will be outside. for the last couple of months, we've had these new moon points happening within the Kalsarpa yoga. So what does that mean? Well, when I start to discuss some of the architecture and some of the function of the themes activated, you're going to naturally understand it. I mean, the Kalsarpa sun moon talks about a certain alignment of inner and outer, but it's karmic. It's a maturity point. There's a growth edge to it. We're obligated to meet certain difficulties, see certain aspects of self clearly, and so it's a karmic process, it's a maturing process, it's obligated, okay? Obligated experience. Now, when we're looking at number 3, okay, because the degree point of this sun moon is at number 3, 3 degrees 24 minutes, Taurus. 3 is the third house, it's the third sign, it connects us with the mind, it connects us with the narrative of communication, collaboration, teamwork, creativity. Number 3 is about networking. It has a social component. Number 3 has a creative component too. Two people come together, birth the child. Two ideas come together. Two people come together, maybe with ideas. Two functions come together and birth a third, a new iteration. So there's some creative new birth, some new iteration that gets activated or catalyzed or birthed into existence from some relationship or from some dynamic, right? So 3 is new birth. And when we're looking at the sun, moon, again, when we're looking at a new moon, every single month we have a new moon. When we're looking at a new moon, what we're talking about is a seed. It's a natural reboot. Sun and moon together in the sky. So inner and outer can align. It's a potential. There's always a potential for the new growth, for the new manifestation, for the new awareness, for the new maturity, for the new alignment. Okay. So there's a seed naturally with this new moon. Well, what is the seed about? Number 1, it is imbued with the number 3. With regards to your thinking, your thoughts, your mind, how you use your thoughts. This is activated here. When it comes to your communication styles, your networking, your curiosity, your communications, the way you share information, teamwork and collaboration narratives come up as well. All of these things are active. And then we also have it here in Taurus. And Taurus is about meeting our basic needs. It's about values. How do we value the self? Do we value ourselves? How do we value ourselves? And how do we know what we value? Well, what do we spend money on? What drives us, or what do we need in our context? What do we need in our life in order to feel safe and secure? We know what we value, and we know how much we value ourselves when we know how we are living, how we are feeding ourselves, how we are helping ourselves. Taurus is the sign of the manifester. This is manifesting. It's ruled by Venus. This is about abundance. It's certainly about meeting our basic essential needs. When we talk about the archetype of Taurus, we're talking about values and surviving, but we're also talking about thriving. With Venus ruling this point, this is indeed about abundance, comfort, having the needs met. It doesn't have to look like greed, not even close. There's a certain simplicity. There's a certain foundational element. There's a certain practicality, yet a certain sensual nature to Taurus. All of those things are part and parcel to this archetype. There's a beautiful, natural simplicity. And, Taurus, one of the 3 earth signs, naturally connects us to earth. It connects us to soil. It connects us to the new growth of spring, because that's the alignment with this time in the northern hemisphere. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at manifestation, growth, comfort, building and manifesting what it is that is the natural alignment to who you are. And for each one of you listening to my voice, it's going to be different. Okay. So, what do we have this sun moon conjunction near, everybody? Well, here's Uranus right there. In fact, if you look at Uranus's position to the sun moon, it is literally exactly 3 degrees apart. I was sharing this with my members this morning. So, I have weekly, live streams that I do with my members, right? So, 3 degrees 24 minutes for the sun moon, 6 degrees 24 minutes for Uranus, exactly 3 degrees apart. And that only acts to emphasize the three that I just talked about. When we're talking about this alignment conjuncting Uranus, it is complex because what we have here is the electricity of Uranus. What we have here is the inherent functionality of Uranus influencing the new alignment that's needed, the new alignment of mind, the new alignment of how we use our thinking, our thoughts. Where do we focus our thinking and our thoughts? How do we value the self? This is about a chaos process, a need to up level, a need to refine trauma signatures, a need to go with the flow of the malleable and transforming nature of our reality in the world today. That's what this is talking about. So we must learn to go with the flow. Okay. And you can see that in this particular chart, this is an Eastern US chart. This is not going to apply to all of you. But in this particular chart, the ascendant point and the associated part of fortune, which is the flow point, the natural flow point, you can see that there's these quincunxing, these difficult, dissonant relationship points between these, the sun, moon, and Uranus, the new alignment, and the need to adapt to changing conditions with the perspective and the belief system. So for those of you on the Eastern US, this is definitively aligning with your particulars for this new moon. So how are you seeing things and what are you believing about reality? Well, there's a dissonant relationship for a lot of people with regards to how we value the self and how we engage and react from a place of fear and trauma or from a place of detached refinement. Literally, that's what we're talking about here. So for some people, major fear and reactivity here. For other people, there's going to be more of a detachment. But for all, at least again, Eastern US, there is something here about belief systems. What are we believing? What are we believing? What are we seeing? Well, we're seeing always through our belief filter. All of us do. But specifically, that narrative's coming up here with regards to how we're reacting to the changing conditions of our reality. Now you can see all of these squares here, right? So the new alignment needing to go with the flow of changing physical reality and monetary alterations, squaring Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas Athena, and Saturn. So what does that mean? Well, obviously there's an internal, because we're looking at a psychic signature here for this new moon. And this psychic signature influences the collective. So for this energetic of this week, really, not just the day on Wednesday, but for the week, what's the energetic? Well, there's tension and triggering happening. There's a friction happening between the new alignment that's calling the adaptation, that's calling with the power plays that are happening at government and corporate levels, with regards to certain preaching and dogma coming out from these corporate and government leaders and etc. The communications, the mass communications coming out in order to grip to their power. In the meantime, what's happening over here? Uranus is also the rebel who is uniquely itself, the individual who's uniquely itself. So this is part and parcel to this narrative as well, everybody. The alignment of inner and outer self needing to go with this flow of life's processes right now, and to really accept and allow what is. Because why? Because nature has a particular process that needs to happen here. There is a story that we are a part of and that we don't have control over. But what we do have control over is our mind. What we do have control over is how we hold and react to trauma signature. That's what we have control over. That's what we are here to master. That's what we're here to master here with regards to our belief systems and the wound signatures that are intrinsic to your specific blueprint. Your specific blueprint has a trauma signature, a set of trauma signatures that influences the bigger aspect of your belief system, and that drives everything about how you respond to your reality. And this is really activated for a lot of people here, okay? Now, more about this triggering effect. You're going to see that, yes, the entities in power are going to grip to their power. They're going to spread information via television, radio, all these kind of vehicles of information sharing. It will probably be dogmatic. We have Saturn Capricorn ruling these things here. And it's creating specifically for the individuated and unique self. It's creating a certain trigger. There's probably, people are going to want to rebel. And we're already starting to see that, by the way, right? By the way, because people want to rebel doesn't mean they have to. And because people rebel in one way doesn't mean that's the only way. There's many ways to become individuated without guns, violence, or anything else, right? So this is, some people are going to respond one way, other people will respond another way. But yeah, that's what's going on here. Additionally, we have Pallas Athena at critical degree 29 degrees. This is the empowered feminine. This is the goddess of wisdom, the goddess of war. It's interesting because the 29 Capricorn is a critical degree. There's a need to mature. There's a need to step up to the plate here with the 29. There's a need to integrate the Capricorn, Saturn accountability, responsibility, the disciplined action, the stepping up into the work, the career to come out, So there's a particular maturity with the feminine that is called to become responsible, accountable, and come out, come out and engage with what's going on. In addition, we also have, of course, this Saturn here. And Saturn's also squaring this alignment of the refined iteration of the self, the unique iteration of the self, the one that is free from trauma signature. Ultimately, even though Uranus holds trauma signature, it also seeks the freedom. It works, it operates to get us to the place of refinement and freedom from the things that bind, the enslavements that bind. Okay? Now, so this Saturn squaring these points, obviously, because when we're talking about Saturn in Aquarius, literally this is the social distancing that we're experiencing here. Saturn is bind, it's boundary, it's constraint, it's rules, it's laws, and this is all happening with regards to humanity. So with regards to the collective, there's a Saturnian narrative that we're all in for the next couple and a half years. And right now, where it's located, it's specifically triggering a lot of people to rebel, a lot of people to act in ways that, can be abrupt, cruel, can be out of the blue. It can create actions from people to just react and behave in ways that are unexpected and, unplanned responses, unplanned activities. So that's what I see. Now, could it also be that there is a lot of technology, okay, because that's also, Uranus is also ruling our technological reality, that technology is also intrinsically part of this new identified self? Yes. Why? Because of the current conditions. But that's not really why. I mean, the why is that this is simply the activation of our current evolutionary process, everybody. It's just natural. So there's more technology that we are using, but there's also the other narrative, of the 5G development and the push to continue and get it launched. So satellites are already up, and there's something quite interesting with this particular square. Without going into a lot of detail here, because I have no desire to go too deep into this conversation, especially not in this video, and maybe not ever, I don't know. But 5G, I think we all can probably agree that 5G is a toxic energetic for life, and there have been 5G, I don't know what you call them actually, the mechanical aspects that are put up uh, in England, and there's been video of, trees dying right next to where the box is. Hold on, everybody. Sorry, my cat's sneezing in the background, so you probably heard some noises there. Sorry. Okay, so with regards to this activation, yeah, it's a little bit intense this week, but you know what? This is also going to activate for a lot of you your maturity. So let it activate your maturity. It doesn't have to activate something toxic and something wound-based and something reactive and something, quite frankly, immature. So let this week bring out the best in you. Now, this is the thing that I want to point out. See this 3-degree point where we have this? I want to point this out because this is what Kaipacha had actually noted. And I thought that this was really good. And I've been following Kaipacha since before he was Kaipacha, a long time. Okay, so this is what he wrote about this particular new moon. And I thought that this was important. He said, it's worth noting that this degree, meaning the 3-degree point in Taurus, that this degree is known for being the Chiron discovery degree, the wounded healer and centaur planet that acts as the emissary or rainbow bridge between Saturn and Uranus. While Chiron's own journey is often accompanied by wounding, the true purpose is one of adaptation toward a new mutation. Now, clearly, he's talking about this very much in relationship to what we're talking about the general energetic that I was just explaining. But he's also specifically referring to the Sabian symbol, which I also always look into. Whenever we're looking at a new moon or a full moon, the Sabian symbology that lives at that point, the energetic signature that is just naturally part of the information field at that point, is valuable. It's very valuable, and especially in this particular case. So I'm going to read the symbology here. So this point of the new seed, 3, sun, moon, inner, outer, 3, mind, okay, alignment. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The keynote, riches that come from linking the celestial and the earthly nature. Now, one thing to note before I go any further is that down here he says this rainbow bridge. So, Chiron kind of living between the Saturn and Uranus field, which is where it's located in the solar system. So Saturn, I was telling this to my members this morning, Saturn is, as a lot of you already know, it's the manifest realm. It is the physicality of this earthly matrix. When we're talking about Uranus, we're talking about deep space, like the great void here. And there's more to say about that, right? Because these two planets are both really co-rulers of Uranus, of Aquarius. of Aquarius. So, and Uranus does have quality sets very much aligned with Saturn. So I just want you to kind of think a little bit about this, because Saturn is about manifest reality. It's about time. It's about how we experience this earth plane. It can create limit and bind and boundary, but the function of Saturn is to create focus in order to manifest. When we look at Uranus, it rules the evolutionary process of humanity. And so thus, of course, it imbues trauma signature from the deep, quote unquote, past. Barbaric cruelty, disconnected from emotion. But Uranus is simultaneously the enlightened, lighter, refined, healthfully detached, more holistically oriented future, quote unquote. So we have this kind of bind, but there's also a bind here. We have a maturity here, but we also have this refinement here. So both have very similar quality sets. And here is Chiron right in between. So the bridge between deep space and the physical realm, it is interesting because when we're talking about Chiron as it lives in the chart, and you can see here we have it at 7 degrees, right? 7 exactly, right? We have Venus at 15 exactly. We have the nodal axis at 0, 0, which I'll talk about in a second. So there's a lot of zeros, let's say, that's very activated here. 0 is a new start, a new chapter, a new journey, a new adventure. It is potential, period. Okay? So when we're talking about Chiron is two sides of a coin, because it shows us in the natal blueprint where and how, and the circumstances around wounding, intrinsic wounding that we can't heal. It's not going anywhere. But that precise wounding is exactly the skill sets that we are from that wounding to develop and bring forward. Two sides of the exact same coin. The wounding's intrinsic to the skills that we're here to bring. Okay? So with regards to Chiron, what Kaipacha noted here is critically important, because when we're looking at this sun moon at 3 degrees, this was Chiron's discovery point. It naturally is involving a need to reorient our judgment around, our shaming around our own wounding that has impacted our sense of self-worth and self-value. Period. Because there's skills to come now. This is a new chapter. The normal that we knew no longer is, thank God. We were out of control on every level. Okay? So the new normal is to come. It needs to come. It's critical to come. It's part of the process. It's natural and it's needed. So when we talk about this particular narrative, let's read through this. So the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, riches that come from linking the celestial to the earthly nature, just like we have with Saturn and Uranus. In Genesis, the rainbow is the symbol of the covenant of God with Noah. In all mythologies, it expresses, in one way or another, a linking process, or the bridge used by divine beings to communicate with mortals. What the linking process brings to the individual consciousness is elusive, as the rainbow never ends where you are. Yet it is the source of symbolic, universally valid wealth. All wealth, in a very real sense, comes from commerce, i.e. the commingling of minds, and from contracts, and thus is based on faith in the validity of a promise. At this fourth stage of the fivefold process, we are given, by the way, this is written by Dane Rudhyar, yeah? At this fourth stage of the fivefold process, we are given a mode of operation, which reminds us of the symbol for the second stage, an electric storm. Human need not be overawed by the celestial display of power, for it leads to a fruitful contract with beings of light. This is a natural kind of communion involving a transubstantiation of matter. Now, this last sentence, I have to say, is fantastic. Let's close this down. The reason being is that we are going through an extended multi-year process throughout this time of Uranus through Taurus, which is going to be another, 5 years or so. So we have an additional time of the transubstantiation of matter. That's what this whole time frame is about. This is this chaos process moving through Earth, moving through soil, food systems, agribusiness, moving through the banking systems, financial systems, moving through our sense of self-value, our sense of self-worth, moving through simplicity, kind of a practical, slow, stable, comfortable, sensual connection with Venusian Gaian beauty. That is what's emerging here. That's what is called to emerge, I should say. It's really people's individual free will choice, what they do with this time, what they do with their energetic, what is their belief system that's driving their relationship to their daily reality. Is it fear-based? Because the fear-based processes that are driving behavior and reaction, it's tied to a wound, everybody. Don't listen to, don't drink in, don't imbibe data that is making you feel fear or isolated or separate. Because why? It's unnatural, it's skewed, it's not driven by the nature of the interconnectedness of the web of life and really the beauty that lives at the base of natural process. Okay? There's a lot to say with that, but let's move on to the nodes quickly here. Now, you'll notice that the nodes are currently, or will be on Wednesday, they're going to be at 0 degrees 37 minutes, right? So the nodes go backwards, right? So the nodes have been going through Cancer clockwise over the last 18 months, and here we are. So at this point of this Chiron inner and outer self alignment, a recalibration of the woundings that we hold in order to bring forward the skill sets that we've built through those wounds. Here we are at a 0 degree evolutionary point, a 0 degree mastery arc. Okay? 0, 0. This is about potential. This is also about foundations, because again, the North Node has gone down from the 29th degree down to the 0 degree. 29 degree, 59 minutes, all the way down. And so here we are, everybody, at this point of a new beginning of self-worth, self-value. By the way, this is a cycle for the month ahead, but it's also a cycle for the year ahead. Why? Because there's only one Taurus new moon a year. So this is a double new cycle, month and year, right? And for this month and for the year ahead, this is the signature. This is about connecting with the foundation of your feelings, of what matters to you, of what has resonance for you, of what has meaning for you. 0 degree Cancer is the IC point in the natural archetypal chart. Literally, this whole signature is pointing each and every one of us to connect in with our root. What has meaning for me as an individual? And each of you are going to have a different juice, a different pulse, a different energetic, a different desire set, a different orientation. Each of you is a different blueprint. You're distinct, you're diverse, you're unique, and you're also part of the collective. You're part of the web of life, diversity, unity, and diversity here. That's what we're talking about. Everything in life is diverse, yet it's intrinsically connected. Why? For many reasons, but one of the reasons is we all hold these stories. Each and every one of you listening to my voice right now hold not only each one of these archetypes, but you hold each one of these kind of narratives that live within the planetary functions, the relationship dynamics, the particular wound sets, all of it. We all hold each of that. We are a fractal of the consciousness field. So we each hold all of it. There's no shame. There's no need to judge or deny or not confront or not see or not recognize the truth of the woundings, the dark aspects. The integration will be required. It is required, really. For people to be sane and grounded, it's critical. Okay? So lots of energetics. The 0-degree node, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant here. Get connected to your root. The issue too with the 0-degree south node in Capricorn, this is what needs to be released. There's an aspect of our lives, collectively and individually, that must release the Capricorn focus. And Capricorn, this is the point of the MC in the natural archetypal chart. So the MC is your public self, the social self. It's your career. It's your goals in what you want to achieve and build, right? Connected to what civilization models for us. Well, South Node here says easily, this is to be let go. And if you don't let it go as an individual, guess what? Nature will. Natural process will. And that's precisely what's going on. How many people now have filed for unemployment? 22 million, right? This is this. This is it. It's letting it go. It's letting it go. Because this is not the thing to drive your life. The governments and the corporations, and indeed the capitalistic, hyper-intensive mode that we have been in, this is not the place to find our worth or our value or put all of our time, energy, and attention. But what is this point. Why? Because it's the North Node point. It's juicy. Very juicy. Okay? I think I'm going to leave it there. Is there anything else I want to say? Oh, there is one last thing, actually. If we look at Chiron, right? So we have this Chiron at 700. 7, of course, is the number of the great mysteries. It's the number of kind of consciousness, spirituality, that which cannot fully be known. It's like the paradoxical nature of life, you know. We see certain things, we can't see all of it. That's number 7. And Chiron is a bit like that, you know. We have woundings that we might not fully see. But we know that they're there because our actions show us where we're wounded. Our behavior, our decisions show us where we're wounded, very easily, by the way. Okay? So we have this Chiron here, and it's with Black Moon Lilith, which is about this devaluing of the self. So the wound of not having power, not being seen, not being accepted, being denied, you know. This is connected to, we have these points kind of connected by square over to Lilith, the asteroid, connected to the south node of the moon. So this kind of perpetual devaluation that exists for the human by way of the powers that be, the governments and corporations that are in the power positions currently. It is transmutating. Over the next 5 years, there will be some sort of point of real shift here, okay, when Pluto moves into Aquarius. But the point is that this square is kind of showing us the connection between the perpetual looking for father, the patriarchy, the government, the king to lead us. No. No, it takes the self to heal the self. This is what needs to be let go. Remember that. Quit being re-identified again and again by the wounding of how they don't listen, or the government doesn't hear, or the government ignores, or I'm not being empowered by these corporate entities, you know, because that's what we're talking about here. This is for you to do. This is the work that you're here to do. You as an individual. No blaming, no shaming, no victimization. Own the story, get to work. The other thing that I'll point out, the last thing, is this Mars. You're going to notice that it's at 16 degrees. 16 is a karmic number here, right? This is the number of the Tower in the tarot. It's a karmic number, and this is about our action, our driver, our motivations. So what is it about our driver and our behavior and our actions and our reactions as it relates to the collective, as it relates to humans, as it relates to humanity, as it relates to the changes happening, the evolutionary processes happening with humanity? Lots of rage and anger coming up for people, you know? And this 16-degree Mars is actually by a wide orb, but it is squaring Uranus. And this is going to look like, this can look like violent action here. It can look like irresponsible, sudden, reactive action. Okay? So what does this mean for most of us? Well, for all of us, what it means is that we are to be, we are karmically obligated by certain difficult experiences, but it's our obligation to step into our maturity with how we respond, react, behave, how we project our anger and rage at the other versus owning our own perception of reality here. So how are we acting and behaving with regards to the processes happening collectively? How are we acting and behaving with regards to our fellow humans, right? And a lot of people are really stepping up in beautiful, creative, and compassionate ways. And keep in mind, Venus rules Taurus. Venus is ruling this inner and outer Chiron and mind alignment that's connected to the need to be malleable. But Venus is also ruling Uranus here. And what this looks like is innovative ways to be creative, to make a living, gift economies, and all kinds of shared resourcing coming together. All kinds of innovations are possible here with this process that we're all in, everybody. Really, So great creativity can come from this Venus-ruled Uranus narrative and functionality and process that we're all in for the next many years, And then I'll have more. I'll come back in another video and kind of talk more about the nodal axis shift, because that's a huge one. And at that point, I'm going to talk more about Venus and all the activations that we're going to have in Gemini. Now, I'm going to land it here. So for those of you born with a Taurus sun, if you go to my website, if you go to services, you're going to see the listings down here, right? Natal analyses and all kinds of things here, right? But I want to point out the sale stuff. So if you go down to the bottom part of the page, you'll see the Taurus solar return. So for those of you who were born with the Taurus sun, this is on sale for you. There's also this analysis that's on sale looking at this year, because this is a paradigm shifting year. And most of you who are listening to my voice right now already are very well aware. 2021 is going to be the burgeoning of, let's say, a new iteration of who you are. So this is also here for you. There was something else I was going to show you. Oh, this is the other thing. Now, this is very specific and it will not apply to all of you. For those of you who have already ordered and had me do your natal analysis, I am gathering people together who want to dive deeper, have live Q&A sessions, meet me for coffee. We'll have, other people there. So it will be casual, but it will be an opportunity for you to connect with your Q&A, with your questions about your natal. And also in that, we can talk about your 2020 processes, right? The other thing that I'm kind of excited about here is that there's also this, which I actually really want to share with you. Obviously, this is not going to apply to a lot of you. First of all, this particular grouping, I really am calling on women. Not that I am discriminating against the men out there who were born between 1962 and 68. I think that will come next or separately. But for now, this first one, it's calling to be just women. And for those of you born in the mid 60s, so between 1962, 1968, those of you that were born part of this Pluto, Uranus in Virgo generation, right? I do feel that this particular year and the upcoming cycle is potent and pertinent, certainly for all of us, everybody. It's pertinent for everybody. But I am one of these women, and I want to connect with others of you that were also born during this time frame, because I do feel that there are, number one, very specific dynamics of Pluto Uranus people. There's a certain signature set that exists for you. And due to your specific blueprint, the specificities of the various positionings and relationships in your specific natal chart, you're going to have particular activations during this year. And because Uranus is such a big player now, not only Uranus in Taurus for the next many years, but Saturn through Aquarius. So Uranus is huge. And of course, we all know that Pluto is playing this profound role of the catalytic change in the government and civilization, the global structures that we know. The global structures that form our reality are destructing, and they will continue over the next 5 years. And so Pluto is powerful, Uranus is powerful. They're playing these potent roles. And I do believe that people of this particular generation are going to be activated in certain ways that might need to, it would maybe serve to get together and talk about it. Casual. This will also be casual. This will be over coffee, We'll pick a time. I already have 2 people signed up. And you can be in touch. So you can join, you can pay for it here, and then it'll send you an email to email me, and then we'll set up we'll set up the details. So this might be of interest for some of you. Okay? So I wanted to make sure to point that out. All right, everybody, listen, I send you lots of love, and I really do sincerely hope that most of you are able to be in a state of knowing that this is correct. This chapter is correct. These processes are correct. It is creating certain constraints and challenge for people, and legitimate challenge. Some people are being affected and dying because of this current process. This is not to dismiss those processes. It's not to dismiss the reality that certain people are going through major life transformations. Some people are going through death themselves, and then the family members left behind. There's certain conditions with regards to certain people who have been sick, which have been heinous for a variety of reasons. And I just hope that you understand that there's so much with that process that's occurring that is also bringing immense benefit to the planet, to the human psyche, to the collective evolutionary process. And indeed, it is part and parcel. It is natural, and it is correct. What's happening is accurate. It's not misaligned. It's not random. It doesn't matter what the cause of the of the issues that are arising on the planet now, creating this global lockdown. It actually doesn't matter. There's more to say about it, but that I'll just leave it there. Just try not to get too taken away with theories, with fear, with blaming. Just notice, Notice your perceptions. Notice what the trigger points are. Notice what the agreements are, what you're agreeing to. Notice how it's making you feel in your body system. Just notice. That's the place to start. Okay? So I send you all much love, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.